G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today what I'm going to go through is I'd love to talk about 3 really simple exercises to treat any neck dysfunction. One of the things that we miss with neck dysfunction, along with a lot of things to do with the body, is that we look at the labels that we get given, whether it's a disc bulge or a nerve root impingement or stenosis, arthritis, anything that's associated with the neck. We tend to look at them as all these different types of things, all these separate things, but in essence, they're not too dissimilar to each other. And because we look at them differently, we think that there's a whole range of specific things that have to be done for each issue in order to fix them, when in actual fact, there's definitely some things to do that are specific, but the base to treat most neck dysfunction is generally the same. The reason for that is that our neck anatomy is the same. Your neck anatomy is the same as my neck anatomy. We have the same structures, they're supposed to function the same. They might be slightly different, slight variations on the theme in terms of size and specific shape and things like that, but the ideal function is the same. What's in your neck is the same, and how it moves and relates to each other is the same. So the other feature is that because we all live in the same modern world, the requirements that sort of pass through our necks are generally the same. We do the same things, whether we're looking down a lot, we're looking up a lot, we're in similar positions. So even though each person has their own individual take on dysfunction, the root cause of most dysfunction is very similar. So today I just want to go through 3 really simple exercises to address those things. Now, before we get to the video, if you do go on to like the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and show some support by clicking the thumbs up button below. It obviously just helps these videos sort of meet more eyes, reach more people, and in the spirit of trying to help people, hopefully that'll happen. So basically with any neck issue, as I said, if you've got a disc bulge, you've got arthritis, you've got wear and tear, nerve root impingement, stenosis, issues that go down into your arms, whatever it may be, even if you've got sinister headaches, there's some simple things that you can do to improve the function of your neck and back that should sort of feed back into your respective issues and will hopefully give it a better environment with which to settle down faster and better. So the first exercise is really simple. It's basically just using a ball to free up the joints in your neck. Now, the reason why this is a universal exercise is if we just say that your C5, C6 disc is a problem, or the joints in that area have become arthritic, or they've worn down and it's compressing a nerve, whatever it is, let's just say it's that base of the neck which is the problem. What we often see clinically is above and below that is highly likely to be stiff. The joints and the tissues above and below that, so your upper back and that mid to upper neck, are likely to be stiff. The reason for that is when we're looking at certain shapes and positions that you get into, when you're moving your neck, that part of your neck that's become symptomatic is the area that hasn't tolerated something. So it's not that that's just happened in an instant. It's a build-up over time where the mechanics and the loading pattern of the neck has picked out a spot in your neck and it's turned it into a problem. And what we often find is if we look above and below that, there's often some stiffness there that you didn't realize. And in the industry, in the medical industry, we're often very narrow focused where if your x-ray or scan says that you've got a C5, C6 problem, the majority of the effort goes into those levels, whether it's your massage, injections, medications, whatever it is. It's very easy to get tunnel vision and to just think of your issue as 1 or 2 levels. When in actual fact, we need to look at it in context of everything, because when you move your neck, when you use your neck, it uses everything, and there's just one part of that system which is faulty. This becomes sort of overtly faulty when there can be things above and below that, either side of it, in front or behind it, that are causing just as much problem. So we want to go looking for that stiffness, and how that looks is with the ball. We've got at the back of the neck, we've got the bumps that go down the middle of your spine. We want to start by placing the ball in the middle of your neck. It can be any level that you choose. So we don't want to go right at the base of your neck if that's where your symptoms are. We can go above that or below that, and below is quite a useful area to go. And then we just want to roll off the bumps straight onto the fleshy parts. We're not going out to the side too far, we're just rolling straight off to the side. As I said, I'll do it sort of in my upper back to feed some slack up to that area. And basically how that looks is we want to lie on the ball again in the middle and then just let it roll off to the side. So as we've said in previous videos, you've got a choice where you can go either side, but what we're looking for is stiffness. And what that feels like is it feels like an area that doesn't sink in as well as it could. It feels more restricted. There may be tenderness, but we're not as interested in that. We're more interested in stiffness, tightness, and restriction. So once you've had a bit of a feel on one side, just move the ball across to the exact same spot on the other side and compare those two areas. And what you should find is one side should feel more involved than the other. And we want to spend time letting the ball press in to those areas. So essentially how that looks is where even if you have, say, some neural pain into your arm or an ache that goes into your arm, if you find that the stiffness and the tightness is actually on the other side, you need to spend the majority of time on that side. Now, your body doesn't think in left and rights, it just thinks of you as a whole. So if you can imagine that, say, this part of your upper back has become stiff, it still creates or can create dysfunction on the other side. So if this has become, if above here has become stiff and sore, but this is where the anchor is, you've got to work hard on freeing that up to feed that normal slack back into the area. So as we said before, it can be the other side, it can be above, it can be below. We want to be able to find that with the ball. And if you don't have a lacrosse ball, you can use a tennis ball, you can use anything that you feel gives you access to those areas. So just to reiterate, we don't want to get you to press too much, if at all, on the spots that are irritated, unless you feel like they're stiff and tight. If they don't feel stiff and tight, because the other side does, spend more time on the other side. So don't think of yourself as this isolated spot that's causing you problems. Think of it as a system within a bunch of other systems that interrelate, that rely on each other, and we're looking for the kink in the hose, or we're looking for the rusty cog in the machine, taking that off to allow everything to function more normally. So the more slack and normalcy we can feed into the irritated area, then the better chance it has to settle down quickly. So that's exercise number one. Exercise number two tends to look at the idea of pain. And again, we've gone through this before when talking about the lower back, and I'll link to it up here, just so you can get a sense of that. But one of the things that's important to understand about pain, and again, this is any pain, whether it's neck pain, pain that goes into your arms, headaches, or anything associated, it's not tissue specific like we thought it is, or have thought for a long time. For a long time, we've thought of pain as this thing that's based on damage. So if you have a disc bulge that's acutely bulged, or it's inflamed, or a nerve that's irritated, that is the sole reason for pain. But it's not the case. Pain is more so your brain and nervous system's perception of threat. Now, obviously, that can include tissue damage and injury, but it also explains why people who don't have overt injury can have pain. And that happens a lot when we look at scans. Someone can have a horrible neck pain, but their scans are pretty positive, and they're left wondering, well, why do I have pain when I don't have anything there to show for it? And the reason is that you don't necessarily have to have damage. You just need your brain and nervous system to feel threatened enough to tell you that something's wrong. So it's sort of like if you stub your toe, that can hurt, but you don't have to break your toe or bruise your toe or do anything to damage your toe. It just has to undergo an acute or chronic threat. And your brain and nervous system picks that up, gives you pain, so you do something about it and you respect it. So taking that on board, if you're watching this video and you've had neck pain for a long time and you're struggling to figure out why it's been there for so long, then this next point's really important, because pain is your brain's perception of threat. The pain that you experience is impacted by other things that are stressful in your life. So other threats. So if you're someone who is financially struggling, if you've got a lot of other things that you're stressed about, whether it's relationship stress, work stress, financial stress, time stress, worst case scenario, if you've had a legacy or a history of stress in your past, whether that's from your childhood, whether there's really nasty things like sexual abuse or physical abuse or horrible mental abuse that you've experienced, that can leave a legacy of sort of threat, a baseline of threat in your life that your nervous system's constantly trying to deal with and manage, I guess. So we often see that people whose stress levels are heightened, it feeds into this fight or flight response where your body's always, or not always on edge, but it's more on edge than you deserve it to be. So the more threatened your body feels before we layer on top of that your neck pain and dysfunction, then the higher and the more difficult your pain response is going to be to conquer and manage quickly. So it's really important to make that distinction where pain isn't just based on tissue damage or tissue injury. It can be based on that, but it's also heavily influenced by stress and how heightened your nervous system feels, how threatened that feels. So the second exercise is trying to give you the confidence to try and get that nervous system to down-regulate, to drop down a gear more to a comfortable baseline, take you from the dog barking at the front fence viciously down to the dog that's just asleep, relaxed, without a care in the world. And the more we can get you down, get that stress down, get your nervous system to release and relax a lot more, then the more influence we can have on trying to sort of nullify your pain. So a really simple way to do that, and again, we've covered this before, but something that I use a lot clinically is a breathing technique called box breathing. And what it is, it's really, really simple, where you just choose a number to start with. And I always say sort of start at 5 seconds. And basically what it is that you breathe in for 5 seconds, then you pause at the top for 5 seconds, then you breathe out for 5 seconds, then pause at the bottom for 5 seconds before repeating that 5-second box. Now, the idea is you want to be at the limits of what you feel comfortable doing. So if you do 5 seconds really easily, then move it up to 6, go to 7, go to 8, go to 9, whatever you feel is appropriate for you, just so that you can get the most out of this exercise. And similarly, if you can bring that down a second or two if it becomes too hard, that's also fantastic as well. So, but the idea is that once you've done that, you need to feel like you've relaxed a bit or that nervous system's down-regulated, and over time that will help your pain settle down, because we're reducing the threat perception of your system and allowing that to settle down. So that's exercise number 2. Now, the third exercise is the least sexy, it's the least interesting, but in some regards it's potentially the most important. And that is, apart from freeing up your neck, getting your nervous system to settle, the third one is you've got to value the positions you put your neck into. Now, one of the things that we often neglect with this is the role of posture and positioning in pain and dysfunction. Now, if your pain and dysfunction, whatever level you think it is, if it's C5, C6, there has to be a reason why that specific level on that particular side has become a problem. It's not bad luck, it's not genetics. If you've had an accident, it can be a little bit more complicated, but for most people, it's a direct relationship between the position that you actually put that tissue in. So if you find that C5, C6 or wherever it is for you is a problem, it's highly likely that that's the level that you're hinging through a lot to do day-to-day things, whether it's reading, using your phone, driving, working, whatever it is. The level, the area of your dysfunction is generally directly related to the position you put it in throughout the day. So if you're trying to conquer your aches and pains and your neck dysfunction, it's vital that you take a step back and assess not what it is that you do, but how you're doing it. Because you can start out in a fantastic posture and do all the right things, but if you're engrossed in what you're doing, eventually you might find that you'll spend a large period of time in a position that you didn't realize that you're doing because you're distracted. But we want to bring back that conscious awareness, because if you can, then putting yourself in a better position and keeping you there takes away a lot of the threat associated with daily bad positioning, but it also gives the tissues a chance to settle. So if you can free them up and you can settle that pain down, then if you're not putting it in a good position as often as you can throughout the day, there's no guarantee that those things aren't going to come back again, because you're just going to ask them to, because without realizing it, you essentially ask them to begin with. Again, accidents aside, again, it's a gray area and it's a bit more specific, but these rules still apply. So those 3 things are really important to conquer. If you're not doing them well, then and you feel like your pain's not going away, then there's some low-hanging fruit, some basic ideas that you should be able to conquer that should influence your pain. So let us know how you go with those. Please comment below, let us know. We want to make sure we're helping. If you have any specific questions, please let me know. Again, please subscribe and like this video if you found it helpful. And again, these videos are coming out daily, so keep an eye out for the next one. But until next time, we'll see you then.